Good afternoon. It is 1 p.m. here in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, and this is The Ambassador. With me, Ambassador Paul Mathenge, and this is where we debunk global diplomacy and geopolitics. Now, starting on, Ghana's inflation rate has now slowed for the 8th straight month, reaching 11.5% in August, the lowest level since October 2021. This decline comes as both food and non-food prices eased, although food remains the largest factor driving inflation. The country, rich in gold, oil, and cocoa, is showing signs of recovering from its worst economic crisis in decades. The Ghanaian cedi has strengthened by over 20% against the US dollar this year. Reflecting growing confidence, in July, the central bank made a historic move by cutting its key interest rate by 300 basis points to 25%, the largest reduction ever recorded. Officials are optimistic about reaching their year-end inflation target of 11.9% ahead of schedule, marking a hopeful turning point for Ghana's economy and the well-being of its people.
Figure here is that inflation for August 2025 was 11.5%. This means that prices today are 11.5% higher than they were in August 2024. Most importantly, it is the 8th consecutive month of decline and the lowest inflation we've observed since October 2021. In July, inflation was 12.1%, and in December, inflation was 23.8%. So you can see that there is a sharp downward trend with regards to inflation movements. That shows a sustained easing of price pressures. On month-on-month basis, we've seen prices fall by 1.3% between July and August 2025. This means that households paid less in August than they paid last month.
And now moving on, in Mali's central Ségou region, authorities have extended a nighttime curfew by another 30 days following a sharp rise in violence. The curfew, now in effect from midnight to 5 a.m. until October 2nd, comes after the mayor of Degofrei was killed last weekend, an attack attributed to traditional Dozo hunters. Just weeks earlier, jihadis from the Al-Qaeda-linked group Jamaat Nasrat al-Islam wal Muslimin as or JNIM overran a military base in Farabogo. The group claims to have killed 21 soldiers and several civilians, and they continue to hold the area, forcing both the army and residents to flee. The unrest highlights the deepening security crisis across Mali and Sahel. In just the first 6 months of this year, Ségou recorded over 320 violent incidents and more than 700 civilian victims. According to the UN, as insecurity spreads, curfews have also been introduced in Mali's southern regions of Kais and Sikasso. Now moving on, former Congolese President Joseph Kabila has reacted to a military prosecutor who sought for the death penalty during his treason trial last week. Kabila denounced a political move designed to, and I quote, silence the opposition, end of quote. He criticized his successor Felix Tshisekedi, saying he had not taken responsibility for his government failures. Kabila also accused Tshisekedi of corruption related to the mining provinces of Katanga. The former head of state has called the dialogue between all parties of the national political scene. The ambassador will take a short break. We will be right back with more as we debunk global diplomacy and geopolitics.
Today on the show, we're talking about navigating the long-distance relationship.
First of all, the world is now a global village thanks to technology and the internet.
Mm-hmm. When you talk about relationships, when you talk about love, when you talk about feelings, when you talk about emotions, all these things originate from the heart. I never saw in the Bible where someone was married and then the wife was living far away from them and then there was something that they were building.
When it comes to relationships and probably communication, that distance is not a barrier.
Yeah.
But it is in communication, in effective communication. There is something that long distance relationships lack, which is very essential for effective relationship building.
When you're cooking and the tap gets spoiled, do you try to repair it from that point or you run to the main source and then you close it?
A student can transition from other curriculums such as the Kenyan CBC curriculum, the Pearson Edexcel curriculum and the IB curriculum to the Cambridge curriculum.
Hello kids! Did you know a year has 31,557,600 seconds? Why do you think so? Exactly. There are 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day, and 365 and 25 days in a year. We count the extra 0.25 because of leap years. When you multiply all these numbers together, you get a huge number of seconds. That's why a year feels long, but time still flies when you are having fun. Everywhere, GPS.
Welcome back to the Ambassador as we break down the development news for you and get the bigger picture on what's happening globally. And now, in Gaza City, a 3-year-old boy is the sole survivor of an Israeli strike that wiped out his entire family. This comes amid intense Israeli airstrike and the use of explosive flooding robots, leaving widespread devastation across the besieged city. The strikes mark yet another escalation in the war, with mounting civilian casualties fueling international concerns of genocide. There is grief and relief for this grandmother. She holds the sole survivors of an Israeli airstrike that rapid through this Gaza City apartment.
This column and all the rubble was lying on top of him. I don't know how, but God saved him. He is the only one. His mother, father, and 2 siblings were lost. We woke up to the boy screaming. He was screaming.
3-year-old Ibrahim is now one of more than 49,000 children in Gaza who have lost one or both parents, according to health authorities.
We found my daughter in pieces. Her husband and daughters were scattered around her. This boy was found alive under the rubble. My darling grandson. Your mother and father are gone and have left you.
Generations of Palestinians are being decimated. Entire families are being killed together in their tents and shelters as Israeli military bombardment of Gaza City intensifies.
My brother was killed, struck inside his room. They killed him with his wife and children. They erased them all. No one is left.
UNICEF says Israel is killing a classroom full, an average of 28 children in Gaza every single day. The genocide intensifies as attacks are heavily focused on Gaza City, where Israeli forces have launched a large-scale assault to seize control of it. One of the latest strikes hit an apartment in the Sheikh Ranwan neighborhood. Gaza's media office says Israel has detonated at least 100 explosive-laden robots in Gaza City over the past 3 weeks. The devices have been planted in busy streets and alleys, leading to the destruction of entire residential blocks and neighborhoods. Reporting for GBS TV. And now moving on, the United Nations is sounding a clear alarm over the stalled progress of nuclear disarmament. Speaking at the General Assembly in New York, top officials marked the International Day Against Nuclear Tests with a forceful call for end nuclear testing once and for all. Nearly 30 years after the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty was adopted, it remains unenforced, prompting urgent appeals for ratification and global action. Let's have a story.
For nearly 30 years, the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty has sat in limbo, adopted but not enforced. Despite broad international support, key nations have yet to ratify it, leaving the world vulnerable to the return of nuclear testing. The treaty's promise remains just a promise.
That choice is ours, and it must be to end nuclear testing forever. Trust between states continues to erode, while investments in nuclear weapons and their delivery systems increase. Let me be clear, the only path to abolishing nuclear tests is through a legally binding prohibition, respected, implemented, and above all, enforced.
This week, the United Nations marked the International Day Against Nuclear Tests with a blunt message. Speaking to General Assembly, Disarmament Chief Izumi Nakamitsu warned that rising global tension and renewed investment in nuclear weapons demand urgent action. She called the ban on testing not just a technical issue, but a moral imperative. CTBTO's Robert Floyd backed the call, urging nuclear states to hold their moratoria and push the treaty forward.
Can we take 2 major policy steps? First, all nuclear armed states maintain and reaffirm their respective moratoria on testing. And second, those states that have yet to sign and or ratify the treaty think hard about the advantage of taking that all-important step towards universalizing this treaty.
The UN says the future of disarmaments depend on leadership. Without full ratification, the CTBT risks becoming a relic instead of a safeguard. Officials say the time for statement has passed. What matters now are the choice governments make next. Reporting for GBS TV, I'm Ibrahim Said.
Moving on, U.S. Senator Marco Rubio is warning that there will be more strikes against drug smuggling networks, saying the United States will not hesitate to target operations that threaten national security and regional stability. Here is more on the story.
Rubio made the remarks after Washington carried out a series of precision airstrikes on suspected smuggling routes. The operations led by U.S. military aimed to disrupt cartels accused of trafficking drugs across international borders. Officials said the strikes were launched following intelligence reports that linked smugglers to wider networks destabilizing the region.
We'll stop them is when you blow them up, when you get rid of them. So they were designated as what they are narco-terrorist organizations. So the same information and the same intelligence mechanisms with maybe a higher focus was used to determine that a drug boat was headed towards eventually the United States. And instead of interdicting it on the president's orders, he blew it up. And it'll happen again. Maybe it's happening right now, I don't know. But the point is, the president of the United States is going to wage war on narco-terrorist organizations.
The senator had previously supported similar actions, arguing that drug trafficking poses significant risk to both public health and national defense. Past strikes were described by U.S. authorities as measured but necessary, with assurances that civilian areas were carefully avoided.
If you're on a boat full of cocaine or fentanyl or whatever headed to the United States, you're an immediate threat to the United States. And the president, under his authority as commander-in-chief, has a right under exigent circumstances to eliminate imminent threats to the United States. And that's what he did yesterday in international waters, and that's what he intends to do.
Rubio has now pledged that U.S. will sustain its campaign against drug cartels, warning smugglers that further military action remains on the table if the threat continues. Reporting for GBS, I'm Molin Rono.
And now, senior U.S. national security officials said on Wednesday that the military operation against cartels would continue, setting the stage for a sustained military campaign on Latin America, even as basic questions about a deadly strike against a vessel from Venezuela remained unanswered. The U.S. military killed 11 people on Tuesday in a strike on a vessel from Venezuela allegedly carrying illegal narcotics in the first known operation since President Donald Trump's recent deployment on warships in the Southern Caribbean, as Davis Karani reports.
The war against the cartels in the U.S. is ongoing and little is known about the strike, including what legal justification was used or what drugs were on board, but the U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said operations will continue.
The president was very clear, and that is we destroyed a drug boat that left Venezuela, operated by a designated narco-terrorist organization, which is what these are. And he's been clear that the days of acting with impunity and having an engine shot down or a couple drugs grabbed off a boat, those days are over. Now we are going to wage combat against drug cartels that are flooding American streets and killing Americans.
The Maduro regime is not a government. It's not a legitimate government. We've never recognized them as such. They are a criminal enterprise that basically has taken control of national territory.
Hegseth declined to provide details on how operation was carried out, saying they were classified. It is unknown whether the vessel was destroyed using a drone, torpedo, or by some other means. Trump also said on Tuesday, without providing evidence, that the U.S. military had identified the crew of vessels as members of Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua, which Washington designated a terrorist group in February.
We just, over the last few minutes, literally shot out a boat, a drug-carrying boat, a lot of drugs in that boat. We have a lot of drugs pouring into our country, coming in for a long time, and we just, these came out of Venezuela and coming out very heavily from Venezuela. A lot of things are coming out of Venezuela, so we took it out.
Presidents of both major U.S. parties have in the past asserted the authority to use the military for limited strikes when there is a threat to the United States, as Trump did in June when he ordered an attack on Iran.
8 Navy ships with 1,200 missiles and a nuclear submarine are targeting Venezuela. This is an extravagant, unjustifiable, immoral, and absolutely criminal threat.
Davis Karani for GBS News.
Moving on, it was an emotional day for Portugal's national team, as players Officials and family came together to honor one of their own, Diogo Jota. The talented Liverpool forward tragically lost his life in July, and his memory was celebrated in a moving tribute at the team's training base in Lisbon. Here is more on the ceremony that touched a nation.
Portugal's national team held a moving ceremony in Lisbon to honor Diogo Jota, who tragically died in a car crash with his brother Andre Silva in July. His widow Ruth unveiled a framed bronze shirt bearing his name and number 21 at the team's training base. Joined by Jota's family, national leaders and teammates, Ruben Neves delivered a heartfelt tribute to his close friend.
Agora, em meu nome e em nome de toda a seleção nacional.
Now, in my name and of the whole national team, a word of comfort for the family and friends of Josh Costa and the Porto Football Club, especially for me, and because I feel part of this family, I would like to leave a word of much strength to Ruth, the boys, and to the parents of Diogo and Andre. As I've said, we, me, and the whole national team will do everything to keep Diogo present with us. Thank you, Jorge, Andre, and Diogo, forever in our hearts.
Para sempre nos nossos corações.
The two shared the pitch 164 times, most recently in Portugal's Nation League final win over Spain in June, Jota's final match. To honor his legacy, Neves will now wear Jota's number 21 shirt for Portugal. His memory lives on, not just in jerseys, but in the hearts of a nation and a team forever changed. Elvis Muyodi, GBS News.
Now, as Portugal remembers Diogo Jota, and that's all we have prepared for you today. With me, your Ambassador Paul Mathenge on the Ambassador 1 p.m. Follow all of our stories at GBS TV Africa. It's updated throughout the day. We meet every Thursday and Friday as we debunk global diplomacy and geopolitics. Thank you for your time and company.
Everywhere.